Welcome to Korean Help's Mental Health Awareness and Wellness podcast. In this podcast, we discuss various topics regarding the Asian community, whether it be through professional interviews or group discussions. This episode is a group discussion centered around the topic of social media and societal standards in today's generation. We want to bring attention to the importance of the impact of social media as it is a prominent aspect of many people's lives today. We want to start by prefacing that this episode is not professional, as discussion is solely based on our personal insights and experiences. For more information about the initiative behind this podcast, mental health resources, and other medical services, please visit koreanhelp.org. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Faith, and I use social media a lot as I'm like 16 years old, and it's a really big presence in my life.
My name is Hannah. I'm also junior in high school, and I also have been using social media for a while.
My name's Chloe. I'm also a junior in high school, and I would say I mostly use Instagram for my social media.
Yeah, I also do as well. And I think with Instagram, kind of sharing pictures online and a lot of photos get shared. And I think that's a big part of our generation now, which it wasn't really a thing back then. But with like images being posted online, I think everybody like looks at kind of like a lot of celebrities and like idealized photos, and they might develop insecurities about like their own appearance. So what do you guys think about like the ideal beauty standard in like America and for like Asian Americans who might see like a lot of media that don't really portray how they look and appear, since their culture is different from like the average American culture and like the language that they speak?
Yeah, I think beauty standards have always existed, like even long time ago, like years and years ago. Like that social media definitely elevates it. Like there was never really this much of a focus and hyperfixation on beauty standards or looking objectively pretty, which is where I think these insecurities stem. Where as someone without social media who's aware of beauty standards but isn't exposed to it on the daily, they have lesser of a chance of getting or gaining these insecurities. But I think that in relation to the Korean community and just the Asian community in general, it's developed a specific style of beauty, whether it be like Korean style makeup or Korean style clothing. And I think that's a type of fashion that has become really idealized and even romanticized from people, even foreigners who aren't Koreans or who aren't Asian at all. So I think that kind of adds to the desire to, I guess, um, be considered beautiful within a specific standard. Whereas in another country, like in America, there's a different standard, and it's just, I guess, the conflicting idea between you want to be accepted into both, I guess, beauty standards, but also having that self-satisfaction about the way you look. I think that's something that's really hard to achieve in today's day.
Talking more about like Korean American and Asian American beauty standards, I think another way of looking at it is like now I'm able to see a lot more like Korean faces and talking about like, makeup, like see Korean makeup tutorials for like how my eyes look, I guess, and
Mhm.
just a lot more representation. So I think that's like a positive way of looking at it. Not that they're like two separate beauty standards that I try to like both reach, but it's actually like a good thing that I have like multiple things to try out and try to try to see on social media.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like with social media, as well as there being like, I guess it's all like the algorithm and what kind of content you get. But some people that are like Asian may predominantly live in like a white area, so they might be exposed to like more white media. Um, but then at the same time, somebody that doesn't really mean that they're limited to only seeing white or like any other kind of different cultures like videos. And I think that with like if they discover like more, then it could really like inspire them And I think there's like many stories of people seeing, oh, I saw somebody that looked a lot like me and not everybody else that I was looking at around me. And I thought that was such a, like, they became such an idol to me, such a role model. And I think that's also great. And with that, um, I think that when people are looking at social media, it's not only all like bad news, it's also like a lot nowadays there's a lot of more positive messages online of acceptance of your own view of your own like views and your view on yourself, and many more like people are encouraging to like love yourself, because there's also like many nowadays. I guess back then you couldn't see more people that are like you have like unique other than like celebrities or like very famous people, but within but nowadays like everyone could post anything, so I think there's a lot more representation in that. And but um at the same time, now that like everybody's posting everything and then like and all that, there's also more realistic expectations, because now that everybody can like choose what to post and like everyone can expose anything, there's kind of like I think I'm not sure like if it's specifically in Asia, but I've seen a lot of more Asian people editing their faces or using some kind of filter to like appear and appeal more to like this beauty standards, if you guys know what I mean.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that too, editing, but as well as like normalizing surgeries, which it's not a good or bad thing in my opinion. I think it's to each their own. I really do agree with Chloe though on the fact that it does it does have a lot of positive impacts, and by that kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, I think self-image isn't just like beauty and fashion and the way you look, but it's also like your culture, as in the food that you eat or the music you listen to. And I think social media plays a really big role in that. So, for example, if someone may have been a little out of touch with their culture, or I guess there is a lot of racism nowadays to specific foods and specific cultures. So, in that sense, social media is an outlet to, I guess, share that with the world and share new cultures. And that's how all these different food trends as well start coming up. Like, I guess some examples would be like Dubai chocolate. Like, I know that's really famous. And that's even if it's not a prominent aspect of Dubai itself, like, it's still a way of sharing culture. And I think recipes are a big thing. But again, going back to what you said about makeup and um, I guess editing, filters, things like that. I think it kind of, even if you know that, oh, these people are wearing filters and these people don't actually look like this in real life, you see the best versions of themselves because people only post those versions of themselves. And even if you're fully aware that, we all have our bad days, we don't look like this on the regular, you still kind of, a lot of people still take that, especially younger girls, they still take that and kind of use it as a way to put themselves down, which is a big part that it's a big side effect of social media. And I think a big reason is because in the past, whereas social media was used to document our lives and share our lives, so you would maybe post random things such as like a coffee that you're drinking today, or it'd be used to comment on your friends' posts to keep up with each other. Now often it's used to, I guess, show off your life and kind of gain attention. I guess not only just to do that, but people definitely care more about it and care more about their feed and what they post and how their aesthetic looks instead of just using it as a way to document our lives. So I think that is definitely a big reason why people fully, even people who are even fully aware of the side effects and I guess knowing that these influencers don't live like this every day, they still choose to take that and really shift their definition of what it means to be pretty or what it means to be like living a healthy lifestyle.
Another thing about the surgery and editing photos, like I think a lot of people are aware of the fact that most celebrities have gotten work done and every single photo they post has been edited. Like when celebrities say, "Oh, I've never done anything to my nose or I've never got my lips done," like a lot of people like never believe them. And usually like they put like, "Oh, this was them when they were 13 and this is them now." There's no way. Like they got nothing done. So I think in like today's world, it is really like a skeptic's world, I guess. Like everyone is like very aware of everything, and no one really like takes things at face value and like always like put it under like some kind of scrutiny.
I agree with that. I feel like also with like the audience being so kind of negative, having such a negative view, that also like gets heightened by social media because I feel like there's that like anonymity and it's like you don't have to like show your face or show like anything about you, but you can still like leave a negative comment. So I feel like that's like social media also brings like a really big like cyberbullying culture, like with what Hannah said earlier, like racism can actually be combated by social media because there's a lot more representation, but there's also at the same time always going to be people that like bring you down, like because it's very easy to leave a comment that can like that you know that has a negative effect, but you just move on and scroll and then leave another negative comment. But I feel like within that, like social media, it can harm a lot of people, especially if they're like young and posting and a lot of like I feel like not even it's not even like, oh, other kids are bullying kids. It's also like nowadays there's a lot of adults now on social media because I feel like social media became a big thing around like 2010s, and I feel like people who were using it then are now adults kind of, and so it kind of so a lot of adults are now using social media and also using it as an outlet to like bully kids sometimes, which I feel like that's so insane. I don't understand why you would do that and why so many people just want to spread negativity. And yeah, I think social media is also a big outlet for cyberbullying.
Yeah, I like what you said about how the older generation who may have witnessed the different side of social media are now, I guess, dissatisfied in the direction that social media is going now, or the way that the generation is just acting nowadays. I think there definitely is generational clashes within, comments and everything like that. And a specific example I can think of is I remember seeing a video of a really young girl, like she was around maybe like 8 or 9, and since a lot of influencers nowadays are doing get ready with me's and trying to style themselves and talking about their lives while doing it, she was kind of imitating that. So even though she is really young, she was putting on little makeup products, or she was like talking in a specific manner, like she had a lot of sass, for example. But I think that's really just a young girl that's influenced by the social media today, the social media and how it's been presented to her today. And she's kind of taking inspiration from that and choosing her own videos, which I understand may come off as a little, maybe a little triggering to some people, maybe a little annoying, but I think on the Instagram reels that I saw, and the comments were all negative. Like, why is her mom letting her do this? Like, why are these kids like this? Like this generation, is failing, like things like that. But I think that people kind of specify this type of content is for this age group, for these types of people. And like I think that's what creates like a lack of understanding for everyone, because although everyone is free to express themselves, judgment comes with that, and like to such a far degree that people don't really want to consider that like some people are using social media genuinely to have fun and taking inspiration from that, which kind of makes me pose the question, like I know a lot of people on TikTok would be like, oh, post this on Instagram Reels and see what happens. Or like people on Instagram Reels are just so harsh about a specific video, but if you post it on TikTok, it won't be that harsh. And I've always kind of wondered why that is and why people will take saying, oh, put this on Instagram Reels and see what people say. Like they say that as an insult, as in, oh, you're gonna be judged on Instagram. So I was kind of wondering what you guys thought about that and why people would think of it that way, or why people choose to distinguish different social media platforms as different ways to respond to people.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those comments, especially since I primarily use Instagram and not TikTok. I do use TikTok sometimes, but with like Instagram, sometimes I see comments that are just like so awful. And I wonder like how they're just like even like okay with doing that because I feel like Instagram is like the biggest I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Instagram is like your presence is known the most because you can like
Yeah.
because a lot of people put like their pictures on there and they put like their school or follow a lot of their friends. And I feel like that's kind of a big place where you can out yourself. And with that, like so many people are judgy in Instagram versus like sometimes when I log on to TikTok, it's just like the occasional when I see a post and I look at the comments, they're all like so nice and I get like
Mhm.
surprised. But um but I think that it's just maybe I guess it's just developed into that because I remember Instagram Reels is kind of like a more newer thing, I think, because originally TikTok was the biggest place to like have short form content and just like scroll and you can comment. And then it was like YouTube Shorts or maybe it was Instagram Reels, but I think since it may be newer, maybe a newer audience, like a different audience, because like TikTok users were already using TikTok, and the people that weren't using TikTok started using Instagram Reels, and maybe that was kind of how it developed. But I'm not entirely sure.
I think so. I think that might be it because TikTok was already there. Like there's already style of commenting and I guess etiquette in a way, and then Instagram Reels happens. And I think people also post a lot of more unfiltered things on Instagram Reels for some reason. Or at least on my content, I just see the most random things on Instagram Reels that I don't see on TikTok. I don't think there is a specific explanation to that necessarily, like why people do that. It's just more about what kind of audience sees a specific type of content, because you're always on a specific side of TikTok or a side of Instagram Reels. It really depends on the algorithm that you're on.
Yeah, definitely. With that though, I understand like how people say like, oh, post this on Instagram. That's like,
Mhm.
um, that's supposed to be kind of an insult to like, oh, they're gonna actually judge you. But sometimes I even occasionally see like, oh, a lot of like nice comments because there's also a lot of
Mhm.
older people using Instagram because I feel like TikTok is like primarily known to be like more younger and in like I guess I mean even older generations like they use Instagram and like Facebook. I guess maybe Instagram is easier for them to use. It is a little similar to Facebook. So there's also a lot of videos that there's a lot of positivity going on, whereas there's also I mean, of course, there's also like negative comments on TikTok and a lot of negativity on Instagram, but um, it's not. I think that it just became an insult because it's generally just known to be more like negative. And with that, I feel like sometimes when I see videos and the comments aren't negative, sometimes they're like kind of glorifying a really like not so ideal lifestyle where it's like a lot of influencers nowadays actually that are kind of that a lot of people young people look up to are like using ins like their influencer job as like their primary source of income and like devoting many most of their time to it and because nowadays, like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, they all became really big things over the years. So I think there is like a way that you can like entirely like make a living off of it, also social media alone. And with that, there's a lot of people that also dropped out of school and like stopped looking for like other jobs in order to fully focus on like on their social media platform. And I wonder like how would that would how that would exactly like affect the people that see it. And I wonder what you guys think.
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a little more normalized. There's a lot less criticism of dropping out of college or even high school if you want to, pursue in like oh sorry, pursue social media like fully. I think specifically, we see a lot of like little groups of houses made. Like if you guys have seen like, oh, this house, that house, these are all like social media content houses where they all kind of live together and get like every day they'll post different types of content to make money. And I think really, who are we to criticize? Obviously, if they're making an income and they're happy, that's really up to their own, decisions. But I think the biggest issue with that is the clash of culture and I guess the old traditional culture and the new normalized culture now, which is you don't really have to study and dedicate your whole life to um, books and school in order for you to be successful because there are influencers making thousands and millions of more dollars than people who are in college right now or who have graduated with multiple degrees. I think that's what's kind of, I guess, quote unquote unfair that, it really just takes a specific look or specific type of content for you to make that much money. But I think in like specifically in the Korean culture and Asian culture in general, that's something that for a lot of parents, it's a no-go. Like they wouldn't even consider letting their children do that. I think that's a big difference in the American culture and the Korean culture. It's definitely a lot more harder for Asian people and Asian students especially to pursue that or pursue social media or things like that because of this traditional idea that you have to go to school, you have to graduate and dedicate yourself to academics in order for you to be successful.
That actually brings up an interesting point that I just thought about, that if a lot of if predominantly the Asian community don't really use social media as like their main source of like income, or like they don't, use social media um like post on social media in general. If the Asian community doesn't really have many influencers that use social media as like their main like source of income, or they don't post like daily or anything, do you think that there's like less Asian influencers to like that like are like to be seen by the audience, that are like actively seeking Asian influencers, because maybe there's that kind of stigma behind it in their community?
I actually don't think there's a lack of Asian American influencers. Like, even though I'm living in America, I'll say my feed is like mostly Asian Americans since like I watch their content. Instagram knows, I guess, that I'm interested in that type of content. I feel like more second generation or like third generation Korean Americans or Asian Americans are like feeling more open to having an online personality and kind of venturing out and trying different career paths. Like, I know I can think of a few influencers, like they have these inspirational posts like, oh, I studied to be a doctor for like 6 years, and like, or like I tried to be a lawyer, but then I like followed my dream and now I'm doing social media and like doing really well. And I think that type of content is really inspirational for a lot of people, and it kind of inspires people to also like kind of seek out that type of life too.
Yeah, I think it is very inspirational, but also it is very romanticized as well. I guess it's inspirational in the sense that they really pursued their dream, but also I feel like to a certain extent it is a little unrealistic. Like it doesn't really mean that anyone can just become an influencer because I think becoming an influencer takes more than just like wanting to do it. And I think even effort sometimes doesn't really fully let you accomplish that because social media and influencers get income based off the audience and who is seeing their content. So because of all these beauty standards and having to look a specific way or, attractive to a certain extent, it's really hard to actually become the influencer itself, even if you have the desire to. So I think in a way, the type of content where, oh yeah, like I became an influencer because I followed my dream, even though it is inspirational, I also think it does create a false notion that it's that simple and that social media is just the fame is given to whoever wants it. I think that's where we see that it's a very unsteady kind of path because, at any moment you can really lose your career or you can, like, for example, we see how TikTok was banned for like a day or so, and it puts a lot of influencers' jobs at risk. So I think that is the part where we see where it's very risky to have a job where that fully relies on the views and the interactions that the audience gives them.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I agree with your point where it's all very unstable. I feel like even with like, oh, you have a stable audience, at some point like you might like flow into obscurity if you're not really keeping up with like fresh new content, and even so that may like people might be like, oh, you're trying too hard, or this really doesn't look like something you would post or something. And if your like content doesn't really align with that, you might lose a bunch of followers or views, and ends up like all going down. But at the same time, I feel like the hard work that people display being like an influencer can also be like kind of disheartening in a way when you see other influencers that just got like they posted one video, went viral, and now a lot of people are following them or like trying to see what their lifestyle is like. And I feel like having one post go viral is very influential for like the account and whoever's posting, because then you might then whoever like went viral will be like, oh no, I need to post something else now that's like so that people will follow more after this. But then if they don't post like after if they don't post something similar to the thing that went viral, maybe all the comments about it would be, oh, does this blah 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 like relate to you, like something comment something related to their last video, and maybe they'll be like known for specifically only that video. Or if they're like posting a lot of things similar to that viral video in order to get viral again, maybe people are going to be talking about how they're trying too hard and like this was old and you're not able to come up with new stuff. So I feel like this is the like social media is such a like unstable place and unstable job that like that you can either go viral at any second or like slowly slip into like obscurity. So I feel like using social media is such a difficult job. And with that, I feel like social media may be like, I don't know about you guys, but in my school there was a phone ban recently because I feel like so many people are like obsessed with using their phones and social media nowadays that like if they don't have like anything to do, they're just gonna default to being on their phone, and like their idle hands are just gonna open up TikTok or Instagram to scroll. And I feel like that's I kind of like at first I didn't really think it was a big idea because everyone's like, it's just like the future. Everyone has their phone on them at all times and it's okay because like it's also like for safety. But then it's also gone to the point where it's like maybe an addiction. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes like I just carry my phone around with me, even if it's like not needed. If my mom or dad calls me downstairs, I just like have it in my hand and bring it with me. Cause like I don't know if I feel like anxiety if I'm separated from it. I just like I feel like it's just like some kind of thing that's like I need for like daily life. So because I haven't really gone a day since I've had my phone without using it. If I like if I had it. Um so yeah, what do you guys think about like that? Because I feel like it's become such a big part of our lives now.
Yeah, I think with the TikTok ban, when it came back, everyone would talk about how, oh, I didn't even realize that I accidentally opened TikTok and it didn't work, or like my fingers just pressed TikTok, or not just TikTok, just social media in general. I think it becomes a habit, which is a little bit concerning because I think definitely, at least in my personal life and around me, because of just active use and just readily use of the social media, the I guess hobbies, definitely a lot less hobbies. Like people don't have hobbies like they used to. Like if you have a choice of being on your phone and watching a specific show that you really love versus finding a whole separate hobby, I think people would take comfort in the fact that you can really just go on your phone. I mean, yeah, go on your phone and just watch the show. But I also think that leads to really short attention span. And because we're so used to like 10, 15-second videos, I guess watching longer presentations, whether it be for school or anything else, or just paying attention in a conversation as well, that can also be a lot trickier. So I think it definitely has positive effects, but it's at the cost of other negative effects, which would be such as attention span and I guess the constant need to have your phone, regardless of if you need it or not. And then I guess that creates a more bigger gap between the older generation and and those who didn't grow up with a cell phone, because they won't be able to relate to that sense of, I guess, necessity and the sense of like urgency to have your phone.
Yeah, I see a lot of people nowadays, they're like, oh, you kids are always on their phones. Like, is it like so necessary? I just go outside. But I feel like since they didn't really grow up with using their phones, they kind of like don't see how it's so needed. But I mean, I agree that it's definitely like not an essential part of our lives. But I feel like for some people, they might consider it like a necessity. They need it with them, especially like if they have like some kind of medical problem, because it's like become much easier to have like record your like heart rate or like if you need like for like people with diabetes or something. But also I just feel like some people have become really like their phone has become like a body part to them, like they need it. So I feel like, but then with that, like that's kind of a problem, but I feel like adults don't really understand it, and they're like, oh, you kids, you just are on your phones all the time. And maybe, and also with that, they perhaps like see that difference and kind of blame everything on that, like, oh, you're doing that because you're like, what did you watch, why are you acting like this, or like, oh, why, like whatever you seeing on your phone is like it's influencing you to act like this, even when it's like not necessarily. And that can also lead to more understand misunderstandings about like us and our generation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like a lot of talking about like the older generation, how they see us, I think they are right. Like a lot of kids are really addicted to their phones and they're constantly like on like looking at a screen, I guess. Even in school, like we're always looking at our iPads or our Chromebooks, and at home we're always looking at our phones or like our laptops to do work, and when we're not, we're on social media. But I also think like at least for me, there is kind of a like deliberate shift away from just scrolling. Like a lot of my friends and I like try to watch movies more and like TV shows more because even though it's still screen time, we're like, oh, it's like objectively better to watch like a 30-minute episode than like 130-second long social media posts. So I think there is like a counterculture against just scrolling and the YouTube shorts and Instagram reels, like screen time against trying to be more cultured, I guess.
I was thinking like maybe it's also there's just because it's a big stigma behind like phone usage, because maybe if you were seen watching a movie on your phone, you'd be more like, oh, you're on your phone, like you're probably doing something like that's unimportant, even though like maybe if you're watching on your iPad, they'll be like, oh, they're watching a movie. Like I wonder what the movie what they're watching. I feel like it's also just like a big thing that being on your phone now is like seen as unproductive, and well, you're not doing anything like important. You're just like using your phone.
Yeah. I also think like to be fair, I guess people thinking that way or the older generation having the mindset that they kind of project everything and blame it on your phone. Even though I do think that it is unfair and it's sometimes illogical, to a certain extent, I do think that they have a valid reason to think that way because more than ever before, more than any generation before, we do get to grow up where everything is so easy in terms of like technologically. So just not just with phones, but with cars, everything. And especially with the rise of AI and how students can really get away with cheating easily, things like that. I do see why the older generation may think that way and why, they kind of tend to blame everything on your phone because obviously we do in the end, we do rely on them a lot. And people originally used to have phones because, oh, in case you need to call your parents, that's why I'm giving you a phone, or in case there's an emergency. But we don't really see our phones as a way of like protecting us in a way, like contacting people, yes, but also for a main source of entertainment, which is kind of, yeah, I would say it's not a very healthy attachment because you kind of seek entertainment and nothing else. And that really forces you to kind of stick in your own bubble of what you want to explore and what you don't want to explore, which would have negative impacts on, our education and the future and so forth.
Yeah, there's like since everybody's using their phone so much, and perhaps like everybody has like a different algorithm, but there's also like things that mesh together, and there's videos that like almost everyone sees. And with that, I feel like there's become like a big FOMO culture, because I don't know about you guys, but I see like whenever I'm talking with my friend about something and they start like referencing maybe a certain video that's gone like viral, but I haven't really seen yet, and maybe I'll like see later, but I haven't currently seen it. They'll be like, "Oh, you didn't watch that yet, or you haven't seen this?" And they try to like pull it up on their phone and try to show me, and I'll be like, "Oh no, I didn't see that yet." And then they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, like oh you're not like catching up on everything, blah, blah, blah." And I feel like even though it's like a social media is like this way for mass communication, everyone sees like the same thing at the same time sometimes, but it also like doesn't show some people things, because like everyone's algorithm is different, and that could kind of left to leave like a feeling of missing out or something that might negatively affect people. And yeah, like, did you guys ever like feel that way? Because I think that's happened a lot to me, but I don't really think it's a problem with my algorithm, because sometimes I see videos that have gone viral that my friends haven't seen, so I may look like crazy when I'm trying to reference something. But do you guys ever see that kind of thing happening with you guys?
I think so, yeah. It's like, oh, this reminds me of that one video of blah blah blah. Or like, oh, this reminds me of that one celebrity who did this. Like, I think that has definitely become more common. And if you don't get that reference, it's also like, this it's like a little awkward. Also, you feel like you're not like quote unquote like educated enough about these social media contents. But also, I think it's a way of people kind of forming a status, not in this specific situation, but you know how on Instagram sometimes people have private accounts and you have to request those, and maybe they'll like accept it for some people and not others, or some people who have like a following and follower ratio that's like really drastic. I think in a way, social media becomes a form of status, whereas having more followers and I guess having better posts automatically means that you have a better like presence and people would like recognize you better. And I don't know, I think that in a way is really toxic as well because social media is a form of connection. Like in school for me, on my first day of high school, I talked to a lot of people and some that were like, "Oh, are you this person on Instagram?" Like I think that is a really positive way to interact. Also, it's for some people it's like, "Oh, I want to follow this person," but maybe they don't follow me back, or people who are really selective about who they want to interact with and who they don't want to interact with, or who they would post it with and who they wouldn't post with. I feel like that becomes a form of status that is really unnecessary. And that type of interaction and type of like knowing whether you guys would get along or not should be done face to face or through text. But if it's like, oh, I don't want to be friends with that person, or I don't want to really post with them because they don't have as many followers or things like that, I think that's where it gets really negative and kind of leads to a sense of inferiority.
Another thing about references and like kind of making jokes around like things you've seen before, I think my sense of humor really connects with like those types of jokes and like connecting with other people when I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really weird, but that doesn't this remind you of like that one video? And then if that person knows, then I'm like so happy. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe you also saw that video. And I've like had numerous like instances where like that made me like laugh really hard, or like I've been able to like connect with someone like a lot over that like just one moment. And that's not just with only like social media. Like there's been times when I'm kind of like thinking of like a movie and or like a TV show maybe, and then there's a reference there. So I think that type of humor and that type of like joking around that a lot of young people do is like a really good thing in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's like something that maybe you kind of have to be there for to understand, where it's like, and also humor can change like really fast within, and there's like a lot of jokes that come up that kind of are big, and then they kind of fade off. So like if somebody uses it later, they're like, oh, like that's so old. But like I feel like everybody kind of looks back on it together because it's like everyone's experiencing like changing at the same time. So they're like, oh, like remember when we all said that? And it's like, oh, that's so cringy. Don't talk about that. But it's like kind of a way to connect. And yeah, with that, I think we've gone over a lot of great topics today. I think we had a really productive discussion.
Yeah, so just to conclude everything, we really summed up the idea that social media is really impactful in our lives, and even though it is a form of connection, it also leads to a lot of detrimental impacts as well. So overall, we want to stress the importance of being connected to reality, but also staying true to your own culture, as social media can often distort the way that we see ourselves and other people. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope that you join us in our next episode. For more information about the initiative behind this podcast, please visit koreanhelp.org.